You're always available because you're afraid to be alone. That desperation makes you replaceable. The man who is always there is never chosen, he is used. You were taught that availability is virtue. Be responsive, be supportive, be present. That conditioning did not make you valuable, it made you predictable. And predictable men are safe. Safe men are comfortable. Comfortable men are ignored. You confuse accessibility with strength. You think being reachable signals reliability. In reality, constant presence signals excess supply. And excess supply collapses value, whether it's currency, product, or man. This is not philosophy, it's market law. The more available you are, the less negotiation power you hold. The more reachable you are, the less mystery surrounds you. The more you answer immediately, the less your time appears scarce. Scarcity creates gravity. Availability evaporates it. Look at power structures throughout human hierarchy. The leader is not constantly accessible. The king does not stand at the gate begging to be seen. The predator does not announce his position. Distance is not arrogance, it is positioning. When you are always there, you remove tension. When you remove tension, you remove desire. When you remove desire, you remove leverage. And without leverage, you are reduced to utility. Utility is dangerous territory, because utility can be replaced. There is always another man who can text faster, another man who can give more time, another man who can offer emotional reassurance on demand. If your value is based on presence alone, you are competing in a race to the bottom. Understand this: humans do not attach deeply to what is guaranteed. They attach to what feels uncertain but controlled. The mind assigns higher value to what could disappear. When you are constantly present, you remove the possibility of loss. And without the risk of loss, there is no urgency. You think being good means being available, but goodness without boundaries signals fear. Fear of losing attention, fear of not being chosen, fear of silence. So you overcompensate with presence. You respond instantly. You rearrange your schedule. You offer access to your time without friction. That is not generosity. That is anxiety disguised as virtue. Power begins where availability ends. Scarcity does not mean playing games. It does not mean ignoring people for effect. It means your time is structured around your mission, not around someone else's emotional impulses. A rare man does not disappear randomly. He is simply occupied by priorities larger than approval. This is the lens shift you must adopt. Your time is an asset. Your attention is currency. Your presence is a privilege. If you treat these as infinite, others will too. The moment someone knows they can reach you at any hour, your perceived importance drops, because importance is measured by access control. High-value institutions restrict access. Elite circles restrict entry. Powerful individuals filter interaction. You, however, hand out access freely, then wonder why respect declines. Availability feels safe. Scarcity feels risky. Because when you withdraw, you risk being replaced. You risk not being pursued. You risk silence. And that fear reveals the truth. You were never operating from power. You were operating from dependence. Scarcity forces you to confront that dependence. It forces you to build a life that does not revolve around being needed. It forces you to tolerate silence without scrambling to fill it. It forces you to accept that not everyone will chase. Good. Because not everyone should. Rarity is a filter. Availability is an invitation. One selects, the other begs. If you are always available, you are signaling one message: I have nothing more important than this. And that sentence silently lowers your rank.
Rarity raises perceived status because it implies alternatives, options, direction, a life in motion. The rare man is not unavailable because he hates people. He is unavailable because he is building something. When someone interacts with him, they feel interruption, not obligation. That difference is everything. Your presence must feel earned, not assumed. If it is assumed, it loses weight. If it loses weight, it loses impact. If it loses impact, you lose authority. This chapter is not telling you to disappear. It is telling you to restructure your identity around priority. You do not chase attention, you allocate it. You do not offer unlimited access, you grant controlled entry. Because from this moment forward, you understand one law. The man who is always available is easy to consume. The man who is rare must be pursued. And pursuit is where power begins. You think attraction is emotional. It isn't. It's neurological. The human brain is wired to assign value based on scarcity, not morality, not kindness, not loyalty. Scarcity. When something is limited, the brain releases dopamine in anticipation, not possession, anticipation. The chase stimulates reward pathways far more intensely than guaranteed access ever will. This is why casinos make you almost win. This is why luxury brands limit supply. This is why silence creates obsession. Intermittent reinforcement is the mechanism. If a reward is predictable, the brain relaxes. If a reward is uncertain, the brain becomes alert. Attention sharpens, memory strengthens, focus increases. When you are constantly available, you eliminate uncertainty. When you eliminate uncertainty, you eliminate anticipation. When you eliminate anticipation, you eliminate emotional intensity. You become stable, but invisible. Humans do not chase stability, they chase tension. Tension is created by limited access, delayed gratification, and controlled unpredictability. Not chaos, controlled unpredictability. When someone does not know exactly when they will hear from you, your presence gains psychological weight. Your silence creates space, and space amplifies imagination. Imagination is more powerful than reality. If you respond immediately every time, there is no mental space to fill, no question, no curiosity, no projection. You remove the chase, and without the chase, desire fades. This is not cruelty, it is evolutionary wiring. In tribal structures, the high-status male was not constantly seeking validation. He was focused on survival, territory, leadership. His attention was scarce because it was directed towards mission. Scarcity implied importance. If he was difficult to access, it was because he had higher priorities, not because he was trying to appear impressive. Modern men invert this. They orbit, they hover, they check, they reassure. They flood conversations with availability. And what does that communicate? I am waiting. Waiting is subordinate behavior. When you wait for someone's message, your nervous system is positioned beneath theirs. You have handed them emotional leverage. The brain registers this imbalance subconsciously. The person who waits less holds more power, because power is rooted in who is less affected by outcome. Scarcity signals non-attachment, and non-attachment is intoxicating. It suggests options, alternatives, internal control. It implies that your emotional stability is not dependent on external validation. That perception alone raises status. Now understand the danger. Fake scarcity collapses quickly. If you withdraw while secretly obsessing, your behavior will leak insecurity. You will overcorrect. You will re-engage too intensely. You will betray that the distance was a tactic, not an identity. Rarity must come from structure, not performance. If you genuinely have priorities, work, discipline, growth, physical training, intellectual development, your availability naturally decreases, not as strategy, as consequence. This is the difference between a man who plays hard to get and a man who is hard to get. The first is performing scarcity. The second embodies it. Humans detect congruence instinctively. If your time is truly valuable, you will not scramble to give it away. If your schedule is built around purpose, interruptions feel costly, and cost increases perceived worth. The principle is simple. What costs more is valued more. If access to you costs nothing, no patience, no effort, no timing, then your presence holds minimal perceived worth. When you answer instantly, you remove effort. When you are always free, you remove.
There are three versions of you operating in the world. One is desperate. One is useful. One is untouchable. Most men rotate between the first two and never become the third. The first man is the chaser. He moves first, always. He texts first, calls first, apologizes first, adjusts first. He believes initiative is dominance. It isn't, not when it's constant. The chaser operates from fear of losing access. He fills silence instantly. He over-explains. He increases effort when attention drops. He mistakes persistence for power. But pursuit without restraint lowers perceived value. When you chase excessively, you communicate one thing: you are the prize. And the moment you establish someone else as the prize, you demote yourself. The chaser feels active, but psychologically he is reactive. His behavior depends on feedback. If responses slow down, he intensifies. If attention fades, he panics internally. He cannot tolerate uncertainty, and because he cannot tolerate it, he tries to eliminate it. That is weakness. The second man is the provider. He does not chase loudly. He stabilizes. He gives time, support, reassurance, solutions. He becomes dependable infrastructure. He believes consistency guarantees loyalty. It doesn't. Consistency without selectivity turns you into background security. You're appreciated but not desired, needed but not pursued. The provider is the emotional insurance policy. He answers late-night calls. He listens endlessly. He sacrifices his schedule. He absorbs instability. He feels noble. But nobility without leverage becomes exploitation. The provider's mistake is believing usefulness creates irreplaceability. It doesn't. Usefulness creates dependence, and dependence can be substituted. There is always another man willing to provide, another man willing to overgive, another man willing to rescue. If your identity is built on being needed, you are trapped by whoever needs you. Now, the third man, the phantom. He is not cold, he is not arrogant, he is not theatrical. He is selective. He does not rush to fill silence. He does not overextend to secure validation. He does not explain his schedule. He engages, but on his terms. The phantom does not disappear randomly. He simply has priorities that outrank approval. His responses are measured. His presence is intentional. His attention feels allocated, not automatic. He does not chase. He does not over-provide. He evaluates. When attention drops, he does not spike effort. He observes. If energy declines, he matches it or withdraws. Matching energy is power. Overcompensating is surrender. The phantom understands one law. Whoever is more emotionally invested holds less leverage. So he invests slowly, not because he fears connection, but because he respects positioning. He does not reveal everything instantly. He does not make himself fully predictable. He does not flood with reassurance. And because of that, his presence carries weight. Silence from the chaser creates relief. Silence from the provider creates convenience. Silence from the phantom creates curiosity. Curiosity is leverage. The phantom's detachment is not emotional emptiness. It is controlled allocation.
He knows his value is not proven through effort, but assumed through posture. Posture determines rank long before personality does. If you act as if someone's reaction determines your stability, you lower your posture. The phantom remains stable regardless of outcome. If someone pulls away, he does not scramble. If someone tests distance, he does not collapse. If someone attempts to provoke insecurity, he does not react. Reaction is submission. Stillness is dominance. Now, ask yourself honestly, when attention fades, do you intensify? When silence appears, do you fill it? When someone delays response, does your mind race? If yes, you are operating as the chaser or the provider. The phantom tolerates uncertainty because he has built a life that does not orbit one source of validation. That is the difference. He is not trying to be rare, he simply is, because his time is divided across ambition, discipline, and internal order. His availability is limited as a byproduct of purpose, not strategy. And purpose is the ultimate filter. When you have direction, you stop seeking constant affirmation. When you stop seeking constant affirmation, you become harder to control. And when you become harder to control, you become harder to replace. There are three men. One begs, one serves, one selects. Most men never evolve past service. Very few become selection. If you continue chasing or over-providing, you will remain accessible. Accessible men are easy to consume. The phantom is not consumed. He is pursued. Power has never been loud. It has never been overexposed. It has never been constantly available. Look at history, not romance. Kings did not roam marketplaces begging for attention. Their presence was rare. Audiences were granted, not assumed. Access required protocol. Restricted access created aura. Aura created psychological dominance. When a ruler appeared, it was an event. Scarcity magnified impact. The same pattern exists in warfare. The most dangerous predator is not the one constantly charging. It is the one that studies, waits, and strikes with precision. A wolf does not announce its schedule. A lion does not reassure the herd. A hawk does not circle for approval. Predators conserve energy. They do not chase endlessly. They select targets. Selection is power. Now observe modern behavior. You overextend, you overcommunicate, you overexplain. You reveal your position constantly through digital exposure. You broadcast availability as if transparency equals strength. It doesn't. Visibility without hierarchy reduces perceived dominance. In ancient courts, mystery was strategic. Information about the ruler was limited. Even emotional expressions were controlled. The less predictable the authority, the more cautious others became. Caution breeds respect. When people cannot fully read you, they adjust themselves around you. They become careful. They invest more attention into decoding your behavior. That cognitive investment elevates your status. But when you are transparent to the point of predictability, no adjustment is required. You are mapped, understood, contained. Contained men are safe. Safe men are not feared, and men who are not feared are easily tested. Understand this clearly. Power dynamics are not emotional, they are structural. Throughout history, high-status figures controlled two things: access and reaction. Access was filtered, reaction was measured. Emotional reactivity signals vulnerability. Immediate accessibility signals need. When a king reacts impulsively, he appears unstable. When he grants constant access, he appears desperate for approval. Stability is reinforced through restraint. Restraint creates asymmetry. Asymmetry creates authority. Now bring this back to you. When you answer every message instantly, you collapse asymmetry. When you explain every delay, you surrender mystique. When you overshare your plans, you remove strategic ambiguity. Strategic ambiguity is not deception, it is disciplined silence. Consider powerful military leaders. Their strategies were not fully revealed. Their movements were not publicly explained. Uncertainty forced opponents to hesitate. Hesitation gives advantage. When someone is unsure of your next move, they think twice before testing you. But when you are fully predictable, your reactions become anticipated. Anticipation neutralizes leverage. You have been conditioned to believe openness equals authenticity. In reality, selective disclosure equals strength. Not everyone deserves insight into your schedule, your emotional fluctuations, your internal conflicts. The more information you hand out freely, the less effort others must expend to understand you. Effort invested equals value perceived. In royal systems, limited access to the throne increased perceived divine authority. In elite circles, restricted membership increases prestige. In exclusive institutions, long waiting lists increase demand. You are operating as if your presence should be universally accessible. That is not noble. It is structurally weak. Authority requires distance. Distance does not mean isolation, it means boundary. The silent man in a room often commands more psychological space than the loudest one, because silence suggests evaluation. Loudness suggests validation seeking. The silent man observes. He does not rush to prove. He does not overextend to secure validation. His stillness creates subtle tension. That tension forces others to wonder, what is he thinking? Where does he stand? What does he want? When others wonder about you, you hold mental real estate. Mental real estate is influence. Now compare that to the man who overshares, who constantly updates, who fills every gap with explanation. There is no mystery, no caution, no gravity. You must understand.
Now we move from awareness to execution. Scarcity without control becomes childish. Silence without structure becomes manipulation. This is not about disappearing to provoke reaction. It is about recalibrating your position. Controlled withdrawal begins internally, not externally. If you reduce availability while still craving response, you will leak it. Your body language will tighten. Your tone will overcorrect. When you re-engage, you will overcompensate. That is not power. That is suppression. True withdrawal is architectural. You restructure your life so access to you becomes a byproduct of priority, not emotion. First principle, build immovable blocks in your schedule. Work, training, study, creation, not as hobbies, as non-negotiables. When your day has structure, you are no longer hovering over your phone waiting for stimulation. You are engaged in forward movement. Forward movement reduces dependency. Second principle, delay reflexive response. Not artificially, intentionally. When a message arrives, you do not treat it as a command. You treat it as information. You respond when it aligns with your rhythm, not when anxiety spikes. Immediate reaction signals hierarchy beneath the sender. Measured response signals self-governance. Third principle, stop over-explaining absence. You do not owe detailed breakdowns of your schedule. You do not narrate why you were unavailable. You do not apologize for being occupied. You state simply, I was tied up. I had things to handle. Short, contained, final. Over-explanation seeks reassurance. Containment commands respect. Fourth principle, match energy. If communication becomes inconsistent, you do not intensify effort, you mirror pace. If interest decreases, you decrease investment proportionally. This is not retaliation, it is equilibrium. The man who invests more than he receives destabilizes his own leverage. Equal exchange preserves posture. Fifth principle, cultivate outcome independence. If someone withdraws entirely, you do not scramble. You do not pursue to recover control. You observe. If alignment disappears, you let it. Scarcity only works if you are willing to lose. If you are not willing to lose, you will always overextend.
Overextension erodes authority. Now understand the deeper layer. Controlled withdrawal is not primarily about others. It is about severing your addiction to being needed. Many men stay available because they fear irrelevance, they fear silence, they fear being replaced, so they overfunction. They respond instantly to avoid losing position. They give more to secure stability. They stay present to prevent distance. That is survival behavior. But survival behavior does not create dominance. Controlled withdrawal forces you to tolerate silence without panic. Silence is diagnostic. When you step back, you see who steps forward. When you reduce effort, you see who compensates. When you stop initiating, you see who values continuation. Availability hides truth. Distance reveals it. If effort collapses the moment you stop chasing, it was never mutual. If interest disappears when you become less convenient, it was conditional. Scarcity filters opportunists from investors. But this requires emotional discipline. You will feel discomfort. You will feel the urge to reassert presence, to send another message, to check in. That urge is the old identity trying to survive. Ignore it. The rare man does not chase reassurance. He lets patterns unfold. And here is the critical distinction. You are not withdrawing to create drama. You are withdrawing to reclaim sovereignty. Sovereignty means your emotional state is not tethered to someone else's behavior. If they respond slowly, you remain steady. If they test distance, you remain measured. If they disappear, you redirect energy. Redirection is power. When you redirect attention toward ambition, discipline, physical strength, and intellectual growth, your identity expands beyond relational dependency. And when your identity expands, your availability contracts naturally. People sense when you are orbiting them. They also sense when you are in orbit around purpose. Purpose is magnetic because it signals trajectory. Trajectory implies future. Future implies value. Controlled withdrawal is not silence for effect. It is silence backed by structure. It is reduced access backed by self-respect. It is measured engagement backed by internal stability. When you master this, something shifts. You stop asking, how do I keep them interested? You start asking, are they worth my allocation? That question alone changes posture, because the man who evaluates holds higher ground than the man who seeks approval. Withdrawal is not absence, it is filtration. You are no longer available by default, you are available by decision, and decision is power. Now comes the part most men avoid. Strategy is easy, identity death is not. You can delay responses, you can structure your schedule, you can mirror energy, but if your core identity is still built on being liked, needed, and constantly chosen, you will relapse. The accessible version of you must die. Not refined, not adjusted, eliminated. That version of you was shaped by fear. Fear of being alone, fear of being replaced, fear of not being enough without constant proof. So you made yourself useful, responsive, reliable, emotionally available on demand. You became easy to reach so you wouldn't be easy to lose. But understand this clearly. The more you tried to secure attachment through availability, the less secure you became. Because your value depended on being continuously selected. And if your value depends on selection, you are not sovereign. You are auditioning. The accessible self lives in audition mode. He performs consistency. He performs reassurance. He performs loyalty, all to avoid rejection. But rejection is the forge of rank. When you are willing to be rejected, you stop bending. When you stop bending, your posture changes. and posture determines hierarchy before words ever do. Killing the accessible self means you no longer organize your time around being reachable. You organize it around becoming formidable. Formidable men are not built in group chats. They are built in isolation, discipline, and repetition. You cannot become rare while constantly exposing yourself. You cannot become powerful while constantly seeking validation. You must sever the addiction to immediacy. Immediacy feels productive, it feels attentive, it feels engaged, but often it is anxiety disguised as effort. The rare man is comfortable being misunderstood temporarily. He is comfortable not explaining every silence. He is comfortable allowing others to wonder, because he no longer fears losing what cannot align with him. That is the transformation. You stop trying to secure connection through access. You start demanding alignment through standards. The accessible self lowers standards to avoid conflict. He tolerates inconsistency. He tolerates disrespect disguised as mood. He tolerates imbalance to maintain presence. The rare identity does not tolerate. It observes once. It adjusts once. It exits if necessary. Not dramatically, not emotionally, decisively. Because replacement is no longer your fear. Stagnation is. You must internalize this. You are not here to be convenient. You are here to be consequential. Convenient men are appreciated. Consequential men are respected. Respect is rooted in boundary. Boundary is rooted in self-control. Self-control is rooted in identity. So the final step is internal. You redefine yourself as a man whose time is finite, whose focus is directed, and whose presence is earned. Not demanded, not negotiated, earned. You stop broadcasting availability. You stop rewarding minimal effort. You stop explaining your ambition to those who do not share it. And slowly, something shifts. Silence no longer threatens you. Distance no longer panics you. Uncertainty no longer destabilizes you. You become steady. And steadiness is rare in a world addicted to reaction. When you reach this point, you no longer need tactics. Scarcity is no longer a tool. It is a byproduct. You are not rare because you withhold